Hi everyone, I'm Fiona Apollo and I'm an artist, animator and comic writer, and I have a confession to make. I get very jealous of people, about everything, all the time. It's actually pretty bad. So it's no secret that in the art world, there is a lot of jealousy and competitiveness that comes with the territory. Everyone wants to feel that the works they pour a lot of their hearts, souls, and time into are worth something. And they are. I don't want a single person to think otherwise. But unfortunately, because the community is now so saturated, it almost feels like there is never enough love to go around, and a lot of things like algorithms and trends play into what pieces and which artists get that love. And sometimes when you see another person getting that recognition when you yourself feel like you're still floundering trying to figure things out, it can stir up some pretty negative feelings which in turn make you feel like a bad person. It doesn't really feel like many people think they're allowed to just enjoy creating anymore, regardless of whether you're a hobbyist or a professional. It's kind of become this culture of having to be the best and having something to show for yourself, and people are instead made to feel that they have to compete with every single other artist they come across. This can even happen amongst friends, and it stinks. I like my friends. I don't want to be jealous or compete with them. A bit of healthy competition is fine, but even that feels strenuous these days. Lucky for you guys, I don't seem to know how to have feelings without overanalyzing them, and for things like this, that comes in pretty handy. So today I'm gonna ramble about understanding jealousy as an emotion, and how we can deal with it in a way that helps us both to keep our feelings in check, while focusing that energy directly into your creative pursuits. We'll be going into some art tips to help improve while drawing inspiration from creators you admire, but mostly I just want to get my thoughts out there because I think about this kind of thing a lot, and putting it out here helps me to check my own feelings every once in a while too. I don't want to be the kind of person who stews in her own jealousy. I want to be better than that. And above everything, I want people to recognize that feeling jealous does not always need to be viewed as a bad thing or as some moral failing, because simply put, I don't think it is. We don't experience things as humans for no reason, and it helps to understand the whats and whys of things like this in order to broaden our understanding of both ourselves and the people around us. But before we begin, this is a very exciting time because I get to tell you about the channel's first ever sponsor, Wingfox. Wingfox is a professional online learning platform that provides you with a multitude of courses with the goal of helping you to become a better artist. Wingfox covers a variety of disciplines such as graphic design, animation, environment design, and film production. All of these courses are brought to you by skilled industry professionals, and you will walk away from each course with a better understanding of your chosen medium. Not only that, any course you purchase is yours to come back to again and again. If you want to kick jealousy in the posterium, we all say it, you're probably sick of hearing it, but practice makes perfect. So jump over to wingfox.com and get to it. Please see the discount codes in the description below to save money when you spend a certain amount per course. And thank you again to Wingfox for this opportunity. Happy drawing! Alrighty, first off, I'm going to go into the more psychology-oriented side of things, and then we'll cover some more hands-on methods relating to the topic. For clarity's sake, we're going to refer to only jealousy just to avoid confusion. There is also envy, which is very similar, and there is a term used for this exact thing called art envy, but the difference between the two definitions is pretty minimal at best from what I've read. So jealousy is defined as feeling or showing an envious resentment of someone or their achievements, possessions, or perceived advantages. Are you jealous of a person's skill, follower count, or their opportunities? How does it make you feel when you see them constantly going on the up and up while you're lagging behind? Do you start to resent them? Does it become painful to see others succeed when you appear to be trying so hard and getting nowhere? Do you start wishing something would happen to their growth so that you have a chance to catch up? Do you feel like a bad person the second those thoughts pop up? Do you just wish that you could be ever so slightly more in their league, because maybe then you wouldn't feel so inferior? I got a bit more personal and serious than I meant to, sorry about that. But if you do experience these thoughts, then you're not alone. And I think the first step to overcoming them is to accept their existence rather than continue to pretend that they aren't around, because who does that help? Lots of people want to pretend that everything is fine and that things will blow over soon enough, which for some is true. But bear in mind, some people are far better equipped to deal with these emotions than others. And sometimes this kind of denial can end up turning into a form of projection. I'm not jealous, they're the one making me feel this way, therefore it is their fault. They don't deserve all the praise they get, their art isn't even that good, I'm gonna let this person know how bad they are and how terrible they make me feel, so that they feel like trash and it stops them from growing. See what happens? The absolute worst thing you can do is this. Don't under any circumstance allow your jealousy to become so toxic and cause you to justify that you are in some way superior to someone else, because neither of you are one or the other, and that is not what we should be doing to each other. And I know that sounded pretty juvenile, but people do fall into these patterns of thinking without even realizing it's very unintentional a lot of the time. For example, I'm pretty damn convinced that the recent Jelly Bean drama happened mostly because Jelly Bean brain was able to garner success so quickly, and people resented that. So I think this is something worth keeping at the back of our minds. Being jealous isn't nice, and you find yourself thinking in certain ways that you would otherwise condemn in any other situation, or any other person really. And this then leads to more complex feelings revolving around your sense of self. What if I'm not actually a nice person? If I was, then I wouldn't be thinking this way. I'm sure other people don't think like this. I like these people. They're my peers, even my friends, or people I look up to. So why am I so upset that they're doing so well compared to me? Well, because we're human. And humans are surprisingly complicated. Ain't that crazy? We're all just monkeys on a rock, and yet somehow we've found ways to make that such a difficult thing. An unfortunate thing about these feelings is that they can also go hand in hand with mental illness. If you have higher rates of anxiety, depression, ADHD, and other similar disorders, then it's likely that you also experience heightened amounts of jealousy too. And this can be the reason why some don't initially understand why others spend their energy dwelling on it as well. You know, kind of like those people who aren't depressed and can't really wrap their head around the fact that you can't just stop being sad. That never really works as well as people would like, does it? It's important to recognize that as much as we wish it was the case, these feelings aren't going to magically go away, but they are still your own responsibility and no one else's. It's been proven time and again that negative feelings are stronger and linger in our minds more so than positive ones, and sadly there doesn't seem to be a cure for that. It's up to us as individuals to just do our best to look ahead. It's also important to remember that because we focus so much more on the negatives, our brains tend to perceive them as bigger problems than they really are. You're not a bad person. The other artist you think is so out of your league probably has similar anxieties, and the level of quality that you are so desperate to achieve may not be so far out of hand as it seems. The hill always seems higher when you've already been jogging for a bit. Unless you actively go around slamming others down, people aren't going to think you're a terrible person just because you have a few low days where you wish your situation was a tiny bit different. The internet might try to fool you with that on occasion, but the internet's perception of things is extremely surface level and distorted, so yeah, I wouldn't put much stock into that. The other thing I want you all to understand is that any emotion can be good or bad, depending on the way you approach it. A lot of positive emotions can be very easily weaponized, which is why we now have terms like toxic positivity, for example, which is when a person vehemently ignores negative feelings in the pursuit of happiness, and can also end up forcing that ideal onto other people, only for this to negatively impact both themselves and others around them by not allowing the full scope of emotion to be felt. Being open and honest about your feelings is a huge contributor towards maintaining better mental health, better communication skills, and improved productivity all around. And when it comes to the art world, these are some of the culprits that, if neglected, can end up contributing to things like burnout, art block, and of course, a worsened state of jealousy that can morph into a more toxic form. Now, I'm not saying that you should go off and start venting to anyone who listens and just let out all of what you're thinking if you are feeling jealous in some way, because anything you put out into the ether will always find its way around, and that isn't fair on the person or people involved who probably aren't even aware that you feel this way. And it's also the most surefire way to make enemies because you're effectively just trauma dumping with no context. Be mindful and respectful both to yourself and your peers. You'll thank yourself in the future. If these feelings are getting so bad that they are impacting your mental state, then you should consider speaking to a trusted real-life friend, family member, or medical professional.
So if anyone is feeling anxious or worried, or even if you just want to chat, please do not come crying to me.
No matter how silly you may think it seems to others, no matter how small you think it may be in the grand scheme of things, if you're feeling down, you deserve to take a moment to breathe, because when we don't allow ourselves to do that, that is when things get ugly. I get jealous. I don't want to be, but I am. And it causes me to think about all the things wrong with my work and how I could do better if I just applied myself in the same way that others do. But looking at it as objectively as possible, I'm doing the best that I can with what I have, and I'm not about to make that someone else's problem, nor am I about to make myself sick from working in order to catch up with those whose life situations are presumably pretty damn different from mine, which can also be a huge reason in why some people are seemingly able to get a better handle on things. Some people do art for a living, some work full-time outside of it, some are students, some are still in school and have more free time to put towards drawing and don't have to worry about bills or errands just yet. It's okay to be going at a different pace, even if it's not necessarily where you want to be quite yet. Success looks different on everyone, and it most definitely shouldn't be measured by things like art style bias or social media numbers, which I think have a very big hand in how people keep experiencing these feelings of inadequacy. Personally, I think success in art should be measured by how happy your work makes you, but that's just me. So, I've waffled enough about the mentality side of things. Let's go over some more practical methods at getting over that hump and improving our works. These are a little bit more along the lines of typical art tips to get yourself to improve, but nonetheless, these are the most common ones that people mentioned when I spoke to them about this topic, coupled with my own little tidbits here and there. So, for the first tip, we are going to get real close and personal to the type of pieces you like, and we're going to deconstruct them. I want you to pinpoint one very specific characteristic that you like about a certain piece or collection of pieces which is catching your eye. Maybe you like the line art or the way a person draws hands, maybe even just the amount of sparkles in an eyeball or something, I don't know. And then dedicate an entire page of your sketchbook or digital canvas to just drawing that thing, but we're gonna go one step further and keep breaking it up into tinier pieces of the original. Do you like the way a person draws hands but can't draw them too well yourself? Well, don't draw the full hand then, draw a finger, and then keep going smaller, maybe just draw the fingernail, or play around with the colours used. Try to take in what makes that hand look so appealing to you. Is it the line weight? Is it the blending? Maybe figure out what type of brush was used for the line work. Is it chunky, textured? Do this as many times as you need until you get a result that you're satisfied with. And it's worth noting that we are not trying to copy the art here, we just want to get it to a stage where you like what you're doing and would want to apply it to a piece of your own. Think of it like engineering. In order to create something, it helps a lot to take things apart and see what you have, and then you can play around putting it back together. Oftentimes when we look at it this way, we're not only learning about the anatomy of the piece, but by breaking it up so specifically, oftentimes you will end up applying it in a way that doesn't look all too similar to the original, but instead, you just learned how to draw something pretty decently, and have potentially found a way to create something entirely original of your own. Method 2 is to not compare your art to the most recent works that the artist you admire has made, and instead, have a look through their social media and compare their own most recent works to some of their earlier works instead. Don't compare it to your own. There is no point comparing your current artwork to someone else's who has been at this game for multiple years or decades already, because that isn't really a fair comparison, is it? Go back in the timeline by a couple of years and compare it to how they draw now, and you'll notice a very substantial difference. Let's use Cyrene as an example. Cyrene is an extremely popular artist with a penchant for drawing really cute outfits, and has this very kind of soft girl kind of aesthetic. She's one of my favourites because I really love the outfits she draws. Here's one of Cyrene's most recent art pieces from April this year, and here is the first ever drawing she posted on her Instagram all the way back in 2012. That is a difference of 10 years, a whole decade! Are you really going to compare your work to someone who's been drawing for 10 years already and does so professionally? Because bear in mind, Cyrene's first drawing is still good, so it's clear she must have been drawing for a few years before this was posted too. Doing this might not be the best advice towards actually improving, but I found it to be the most effective way of getting in a quick reality check when I start to feel bad about my art, so maybe it'll help you guys too. People tend to be a bit conflicted about the psychology of comparing your work, and it really does depend on how you go about it, but the thing is, people do it regardless, so I find it's better to acknowledge that and to find ways to make it more manageable rather than outright condemn it. And the last tip, this is one that you can kind of take or leave, but if it is really getting to you about wanting to draw a certain way, then instead, consider going in the complete opposite direction and trying out an art form that you've never really done before, or are not super big on. The reason for this is that it helps you to 1. Reset your brain, because instead of trying to reach your own predetermined standard, you are instead dipping your toes into something new, and this can really help with replacing those feelings of jealousy, sadness, and stress with a kind of healthy curiosity, because you're not as focused on making it look amazing on the first try, you're just doing it for a one-time thing, so you don't feel as much pressure to go about it in the same way you normally would. And 2, lots of truly great and innovative artworks will borrow aspects from different styles and mediums which help them to both stand out and craft an entirely new viewing experience. People might like anime, but when you ask them about any where the art style really makes your head turn, people are probably more likely to mention series like Madoka Magica or Mob Psycho 100 for example, because the more abstract approach is a lot more memorable than, say, the 30 millionth shonen anime with a ton of action scenes. They might be impressive, but we've seen a lot of that already, so adding in these more contemporary twists can really work in a piece's favour. See if there are any ways that you can incorporate this into your own work. Maybe you have some washi tape lying around, maybe try doing that thing where people cut it into shapes and use it for outfit patterns. Maybe instead of drawing characters like you usually would, draw them like their colours are bleeding out of the lines. Get creative, there's a million different ways that you could incorporate things like this. Oh, alright, and I think that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and once again, thank you to Wingfox for sponsoring this video. And also, if you liked the artwork for today, I was kind of struggling to think of what to draw, and then stumbled upon this amazing webcomic called Nevermore, and I just decided to take part in a Draw This in Your Style challenge currently going around for it. I pretty much binged the whole thing the same night I discovered it, so I would very highly recommend giving it a read. Alrighty, that's it from me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Stay safe, everyone. Bye!